Hey fellow Nevillers, I'm back up in FAWCETT'S letter from 1959. I want to share with you what Neville mentions about revision. I don't know if you guys have used it, but I've used it very effectively in my life. I'll give you some examples right after what Neville shares in the lecture. He says the lecture, my lovelies, is about FAWCETT'S letter, Douglas Fawcett, and his friend Bob Keeler, and they're discussing Neville's Imaginism. And here's what they say. Here's what Neville says, rather. Bob had sent him 2 of my books, Your Faith is Your Fortune and Awakened Imagination, and explained my teaching of revision and said that people had changed their whole lives, sometimes revising an incident that had taken place in childhood. You can go back as far as you are able to remember, and you change that image that has been supporting a physical state of memory. What Fawcett wrote to Bob about this was very flattering. He said, I should consider the revisionary aspect of Imaginism as that given by the Divine Society. I've always been fascinated when Neville talks about this. He explains it a little further, the Divine Society. He continues, and I suggest that you read the last chapter of my Oberland Dialogues. He suggests that the Divine Society is way beyond this terrene world, and it consists of men who have become gods, and he feels such a wider outlook and such a revolutionary aspect of life must have come through that Divine Society. I know it, and I know there are those who form that great body of awakened individuals. They are individualized centers of imagining, and one day all will enter that state, for there is no limit to the expansion of man. From that Divine Society come the ideas that show man what he is capable of doing on this sphere. And then he continues a little further. You revise an incident of the day and relive it as you wanted it, and you persuade yourself that what you wanted took place, You do it over and over until it becomes real, vividly real, and fills your mind in place of the lovely happening. And revision results in repeal. So the thing you have been keeping alive will now change according to the revised image. You will then discover that imagination creates reality. So, my lovelies, using revision, I don't know if you guys have used it, but like Neville says right there in this lecture, something that happened in your past, your childhood, or even today, any part of the day, any part of your life, that, that upset you, that didn't conform to the lovely and noble, as Neville says, you can change it because it's just a figment of your memory, of your imagination. I've used it and revised some of my childhood experiences that weren't that lovely. I know many people that have used it to, just like Neville says, to change their whole life. So, find a memory that's, I want to say upsetting you, because that's what it does. Find a memory that's unsettling. Maybe that's a nicer way to say it. And what you do, go into your imagination, close your eyes for a couple of minutes, get to the calm state within yourself, call up the image. And what I did was go a few frames back to where just before the unsettling image or occurrence happened, and you replay it over and over and over as you wanted to. An example, not a very pleasant one, that I did was where my mum and dad were fighting. My dad went to slap my mother, and a few frames before that, where they were kind of meeting in the kitchen, I changed it and my dad just said hi, like that. Do it over and over and over again, fellow Nevillers, until you change the memory from something unlovely to something nice. So that's revision. Neville calls it the potter. Here's what Neville says about the potter and using our imagination to do revision. He says, that is the one called the potter. I went down to the potter's house, and the potter was working at his wheel. I went right into my own being. I was working at the wheel. I was cogitating on what I had during the day, and the vessel in his hand was spoiled, but he reworked it into another vessel, such as seemed good to him. Jeremiah 18. Well, today, did I take something that was spoiled and rework it? Did I take some distressing word and rewrite it? I could not stop the image forming when I read the letter today, so I hold in my hand that which is spoiled, but I can rework it and fashion it into another vessel. I can read the letter I wish I had received. Everyone has to do that. So if I did not do it, he is not speaking of me, for I am not being the potter as I should. He is speaking of the one who, as in Jeremiah 18, is trying to awaken. Imagination is the potter. The word means maker. It also means God. So I went to God's house and I found him within myself. I sat alone thinking, which means being at my wheel, and what I held in my mental hand seems to be spoiled. So I rework it into a more wonderful vessel. If I can do it, I have proved I am beginning to awaken. And then a friendly word of warning from Neville. But do not try to create any new religion. Religion means devotion to the most exalted experience you have had. Do not try to rewrite it. Do not add to the Tower of Babel. Visions will come bearing witness to your progress. As they come, you know where you stand. You go from Genesis to Revelation. So we'll leave it right there, fellow Nevillers, because Neville is going on to another subject here, and I'll do that in another video. To what Neville says about revision, he says it this way. He says, what I held in my mental hands seems to be spoiled, so I rework it into a more wonderful vessel. He's trying to tell us here that we're the vessel. What does he say? What I held in my mental hands. Our memory, the image we're holding that we don't care for, that's the vessel. So our mental hands, i.e. our memory, the image we've held in our memory, that's our mental hands, and that's what we can rework into a better vessel as we deem it better, i.e. the memory I changed about my parents having an argument. Whatever you choose to revise, just change the image in your mind, i.e. your mental hands. There's many lectures Neville talks about revision. The main one is the pruning shears of revision. Just use it, guys. It's marvellous. It's wonderful. It changes all sorts of things that you don't care for in your life, particularly in your childhood when you didn't have much of a choice about what you were looking at, seeing learning and being taught. All right, my lovelies, see you tomorrow for the next part of Fawcett's letter from Neville, 1959, because there's so many bombshells up in here, and I want to share them all. Thanks, guys, for your time and attention. See you tomorrow. Bye.